Here we go.
Peace is flowing like a river, flowing out through you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Let's do faith.
Faith is flowing like a river, flowing out through you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. Love. Love is flowing like a river, flowing out through you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free.
Let's do peace one more time.
Peace is flowing like a river, flowing out from you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all those captives free. Setting all those captives free.
Thank you. Let me open our service with these words from our hymn. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together so close, yet so far apart. Each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes see not, nor ears detect, that hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth, for the hand around us lies, source of all to thee we raise, this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking senses, sound and sight, source of all to thee we praise, this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all to thee we praise, this our hymn of praise. to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. When we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When to simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn. Will be our delight till by turning we come round right.
One more time.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. When we find ourselves in a place just right, it will be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend shall not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right.
Now, I want to read from our hymnal our principles to start us off with. As Unitarian Universalists, we're not united by a creed or any kind of dogma. We're united by these principles. Think of principles, not the principle you go to when you get in trouble in school, but principle in terms of foundation, to build a life on a foundation on principles. And so that's what brings us together, what unites us is our efforts to live out these principles in our lives, and the struggle that it takes sometimes to live them out, to bring them to fruition. We affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We believe that each and every person is important. We affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We believe that all people should be treated fairly. We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. We believe that our churches are places where all people are accepted and where we keep on learning together. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life. We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. We believe that all people should have a voice and a vote about the things which concern them. We affirm and promote the goal of world community and peace, liberty, and justice for all. We believe that we should work for a peaceful, fair, and free world. We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We believe that we should care for our planet Earth. Thank you. When I turned 6 years old, my parents said I could have a birthday party, so they arranged for me to have all my friends in the backyard where we lived in Hendersonville, right across from Pardee Hospital. We had a big backyard. And so all my friends were invited, and we played in the backyard, and my parents had prepared a little picnic for us after we played in the backyard. And we played on the swings, and we had a little whirligig back then. You sit on it, there's little 4 little seats on it, you sit on it and pedal it, and it went around and around. So we decided the boys would line up, the girls would get on the whirligig, and we'd stop them and give them a kiss on the cheek. We played that for a while. We had a great time. Finally, my mother says, okay, picnic time, party time. So we go up to the tables that my mom and dad had set for us, and we had a hot dog on a plate, and some potato chips and a Coke in a bottle. And, you know, I was kind of dressed up because it was my birthday party, and it was all about me. My grandson used the phrase the other day, he said, B-Day is me day. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, birthday is all about me, it's a me day. Oh, well, you know, your birthday's me day. So it was a me day for me, you know, and I'm sitting at the end of the table, and we're having a great time eating our hot dogs and our chips. And all of a sudden, down on the other side of the table, there's this laughter. And so I went down there, and my friend David had taken his Coke bottle and stuck his tongue in it and sucked and pulled it out and made a pop, like. And everybody was kind of laughing and cheering, and David did it again and stuck his tongue in his bottle and sucked on it and pulled it out and made a loud pop. And everybody down there clapping and cheering for David. Well, I mean, how do you think that made me feel? I'm all dressed up for my party at the head of the table, and all the attention's going down to David. So I thought to myself, well, I'm going to, if David can do it, I can do it. So I stuck my tongue in the Coke bottle, and I sucked and pulled it out and made a loud pop. Then David, in turn, did his loud pop. And it was kind of back and forth for a while. And I decided I was going to win this contest. And so I stuck my tongue in the Coke bottle, and I sucked. And I sucked as hard as I could suck. And everybody's like, all right, here it comes. And I had my tongue stuck in that Coke bottle, and I couldn't get it out. And I guess they saw my face turn to panic. And somebody ran up, got my mom. She came down, and she's going, now get your tongue out of that bottle right now. I can't get it out. So she got my dad, he came down. And, well, long story short, they had to take me to the emergency room of the hospital, which was right across the street, so it wasn't a long way to go. But anyway, got in there and sitting in the waiting room with my mother, with my tongue stuck in that. And I could hear this couple, and they were arguing. It was a man and a wife, and they had their little girl with them, and she had a dime stuck up in her nose. And they had just gone to church, and he said, the wife said to the husband, I told you to give her a quarter. Her offering plate. And anyway, we're waiting, and finally the longer we wait, the more stuck, or whatever, how we just say it, my tongue got in that bottle, and it was starting to, kind of throb like that. Finally, the doctor called me in, and I laid down on the stretcher, and he's looking at me, and he's going, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before in my entire life. He said, now wait a minute, we did have a boy in here a couple of weeks ago had a pot stuck on his head, and he said, then I had to cut it off. To cut off his head, he's going to cut the pot off his head. Anyway, he got out this long syringe, and he said, I think I'm going to have to numb your tongue so we can get it out. I'm going, no, please don't do that. And he said, no, I won't do that. Anyway, he got this little teeny hammer and this little teeny little instrument. He started kind of pecking away at the bottom of that bottle. Pecking. And finally, he pecked a teeny little crack in the end of that bottle, and guess what? Out came my tongue. Problem is that it was so swollen up from being in that bottle for so long, I couldn't get it back in my mouth. I said, what about that? He said, give it a while. He said, it'll take it a while to shrink back in and get in your mouth. He said, I hope you never try that trick again. So anyway, I went back home. All my friends were gone, and I told my mother that night. I said, I'm not going to school tomorrow. And she said, what? I said, I'm not going to school tomorrow. And she goes, yes, you are going to school tomorrow. She said, I hope you learned your lesson. So anyway, I went to school the next day, and next morning, And I sat down and looked at Johnny across the way he threw his hand up and said, "Teacher, Ernie's sticking his tongue out." I said, "Go on." And the teacher said, "Well, Ernie had a little situation this weekend, and I want him to come up here and tell you all what happened." So I had to tell that whole story just like this right here. Okay, that story, I've embellished that story a little bit. But I'm not going to tell you how. When we talk about lies, we can talk about that later. But anyway, it's embellished a little bit. I'll let you figure out where it was embellished. Okay, question is, our title of my talk was why I got my tongue stuck in the bottle. Not, you might think, well, shouldn't the question be how you got your tongue stuck in the bottle? Well, you can get your tongue stuck in a Coke bottle just by putting it in there and sucking. But the question why was, well, you probably know the answer to that, right? This is my birthday party. The attention should be on me. So that's why I got my tongue stuck in a Coke bottle. For just, if I had to put it in one word, it would be for status. For status purposes. Any of you have read the book by Will Soar, The Status Game? Okay. Oh, you just need to read the first 2 or 3 chapters because then it repeats itself over and over. But Soar claims that the number one fundamental drive driving human beings is status. That's his claim in the book. And here's a quote from the cover of the book. I read the book, but like I say, just after 3 chapters, pretty much it repeats itself. But the book's cover says, examines deep-rooted desire in us humans for social status and how it influences our behavior. Well, that whole Coke bottle instance was a behavior that was motivated by this desire to gain status and to be the center of attention. But the status game is really nothing new. I'm not sure I would say it is the fundamental principle motivating our behaviors. But it's really nothing new that humans have throughout time striven for that kind of status. Perhaps those of you raised in the Christian church, or even Jewish, would know the story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis. Adam and Eve sinned. Adam and Eve sinned. God floods the earth, and then Noah comes. You think, well, maybe things are straightened out now, but they aren't, because now human beings want to build this tower up into heaven. And do you remember the reason why they wanted to build it?
So they could reach heaven.
To reach heaven, and the important part, to make a name for themselves. Let's build this tower and make a name for ourselves. This tower competition. How high can we get? You know where the highest building in the world is?
It's
Dubai. Yeah. My daughter and her husband went up that tower. She said it was scary as all get out. Because you could kind of feel that. But anyway, who can build the highest tower to make a name for ourselves? So, that notion of course, that story is told to explain why there's so many different languages in the world. And more than likely, historically speaking, is what was found was a ziggurat, an ancient ziggurat, and they figured that they must have been building this tower into the heavens, which they were. But that out of that came this confusion of languages. That's why the story is told. But it illustrates that human quest to reach the heights, to gain status, to make a name for ourselves. The ancient Egyptians said that about the name of Osiris. Does anybody recognize that name, Osiris? Okay. Osiris, they said his name would be eternal, that it would never be forgotten. So that desire to perpetuate your name, to gain status, and I think even maybe immortality, I can be immortal through my name. So that desire is part of our nature, I believe. But I wouldn't say it's all of our nature. I attended a lecture some years ago about the Hebrew Bible. And by the way, if you call it an Old Testament to a Jewish person, you're insulting them. Because it's not their Old Testament, it's their Hebrew Bible. Anyway, the name of the lecture was Witnessed Significance. Witnessed Significance. And his point was that the Hebrew people needed to feel that their lives were significant. So in essence, they created a God who witnessed their significance. When you think about that, this feeling among the Hebrew people that we're a chosen people. Of all the people on the planet, we're the chosen ones. I mean, that would give you a real special feeling, wouldn't it? I'm a chosen person. We're chosen people. So his point in that lecture was the creation of a God. They created a God who would, in turn, reflect back to them their significance. And I think that's another important ingredient in our lives. We all want to feel that we're significant. The worst thing in the world to me is not to be recognized, not to be noticed, that you're not even there. So again, that witnessed significance that was part of that quest among the Hebrew people, to gain status. To gain status. Think about the word status. If I looked up that word, etymology, that word comes from a Latin word which means simply to stand. And you can think about it this way, that our quest for status is our quest to be able to stand for something, that we stand for something, that we're significant people, that we're not zeros, we're not zeros. The story about the cipher in the snow, the little boy that gets off the school bus, based on a true story, and he drops dead. And the school principal and the people in school believe that there were some drugs involved. Well, his English teacher doesn't believe that because he said, I know this kid and I know he wouldn't use drugs. So the English teacher goes to the boy's home, to his parents. And the father's sitting in the chair drinking beer, watching TV. And he's trying to talk to the father. And the father says, I always told that boy he would amount to nothing, that all he was a cipher, a zero. A zero. So, if you could put yourself in the place of that little boy whose father told him he was a nothing and he would never amount to anything, then that feeling of not being counted, not feeling significant by the people closest to you. And to me that's, when I think about Jesus, I think about somebody who he noticed people. And that was enough. I noticed these people. I see them. I recognize them. That means a lot. So anyway, that need for feeling some significance in your life. But I think it kind of gets out of hand sometimes. In our quest for status, that can become all that we're trying to gain is status, And I think there are different kinds and different levels of status. Most people don't know this about myself, but throughout my teens and in my 20s, and to some degree into my 30s, I struggled with an inferiority complex. I struggled with a feeling of inferiority. I'm not real sure where it came from, but that I don't measure up. And now here's the thing to know about men who are tall like me and, a little muscular. And I hope you think I'm muscular. Here's the tricky thing about, I can't speak for women. Here's a tricky thing about some men with inferiority complexes, like myself. On the outside, they present a very tough, macho, don't mess with me. That's on the outside. And on the inside, there's a hurt little boy who feels sometimes like he's a zero. And so you need to be aware of that. Sometimes these men who are very macho on the outside, I'm not saying all the time, but some of the time that feeling of inferiority will mask itself in the very opposite. To be the tough guy. And by the way, I was the champion arm wrestler all through my high school until my friends started playing football and lifting weights, and I kind of lost out. But really, it was important for me at that time to at least appear that I was a tough guy. And you didn't want to mess with me. So, how do you overcome a feeling of inferiority from the inside out? And so when I went in the ministry and people started calling me Reverend Ernie, that kind of helped a little bit. But I consider that kind of a false way to gain a feeling that you're significant. I looked up some of the titles of Catholics, the titles that some of the Catholic hierarchy have in front of their names. And now you can get status through this title. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can get status through a title. It's not coming from somewhere deep inside. It's coming from these externals. Listen to this. Now, I want you all to think about this when you address me now. His Eminence. Now, these are real titles, people. I'm not making this up. You address this person not as Ernie. You address this person as His Eminence, if you're Catholic. Your Eminence. Oh, that sounds real good. Can you say that again? Thank you. I hope y'all know I'm kidding. Your Excellency. How about that one? Most Holy Reverend. Oh, that's good. Mother Superior. Most Illustrious. Now, let's see. Alyssa, would you put on the next board meeting addresses to Ernie, and we can talk about that. If you all could just call me like Holy Reverend Dr. Ernie, that would really be nice. And then if you could kind of, do that. Yeah. Slimy, blow me, and all that. Well, seriously though, that, status by title, significance through the title that we wear. And I think there is such a danger in that, to me. And I'll never forget hearing a lecture at Emory in seminary. It was a pastoral psychologist, and he said, the ministry is psychologically the most dangerous place to be. I thought, what's he talking about? The ministry, psychologically the most dangerous place to be. Now, why do you think that? Well, Reverend, pastor, reverend, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling when your congregation tells you how great you are and what a wonderful sermon you gave and what a wonderful person you are. And to me, that there's such a danger in that if you're not careful. You know, Carl Jung makes a distinction between yourself and your persona. Your deeper self and the mask you wear. And let me tell you right now, that ministerial mask weighs a ton. You know, every morning you're the reverend, most holy doctor. You pick up your mask. It's really heavy. Get it on your face. And you carry it, you know. I'm this perfect person. I've got it all together. Do what I say. Give me your money. I'm serious. What happens is you Carl Jung says you forget yourself. You're hiding behind a mask. And behind the mask is the self and also the shadow. And as a minister, you have to ask yourself, how much of my shadow am I hiding behind my mask? You know, how much of myself am I revealing to my congregants, you know, without compromising their belief that I'm this perfect person and I've got it all together? Well, that's not the case. And I think that's why there are too many crimes committed by white collars. Too many crimes committed by people who are wearing titles. Not saying they're all that way. They're not. But there's a lot of incapacity, unwillingness to look at your own shadow side. You know, I make mistakes. I mess up. I get angry. You know, I shared with you last week about forgiveness, how I'm dealing with hatred right now. I'll be honest with you, I'm dealing with someone that I've never hated like I hate now. But I don't want to stay there. Because I tell you, hate is like drinking poison and wishing the other person would die. So I know it's not helpful. But I don't want to hide that from you all. I don't want you to think that I'm any different from you. And that's why when I see you, I want to say reverent to you. Because every human being on this planet is reverend. Every human being. Somebody asked me one time, well, you're a Unitarian. You became a Unitarian Universalist, right? I said, yes. I said, does that mean you don't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ? And I said, yeah, I do. I believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ. And I believe in the divinity of every human being. I believe in the divinity of this planet that we're living on. Everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. Sacred is an attitude. Sacred is an attitude. The second kind of status, the status through titles, the status through crime. You know, the person, I can't remember his name, I wish I could, I've tried to find it on Google, but I couldn't. Said he committed the crime so he could see his picture in the paper. Does anybody know who that was? I don't know, I can't remember. It was a heinous crime he committed. And he said he committed it so he could see his picture in the paper. So I think that, you know, that hunger for status and recognition can get so out of hand if we're letting that be our guide. And then I think about the third kind of status, the status that comes to people when they're not asking for it, but it comes to them because they've stood up for what they believe in. I think of Martin Luther King. He had status, but he wasn't after status. He was even willing, I think, to sacrifice his status for the sake of speaking out about injustice and inequality. And you know what he said about the American dream? People think the American dream is coming to America, the opportunity to get rich, and that's really warped our nation. For Martin Luther King, if you read his letter from the Birmingham jail, the American dream is self-actualization. To be given the opportunity to fulfill all your gifts and graces and to bring them to fruition. If you read that letter, he says a law that's unjust, the effects of an unjust law is the distortion of the personality. And he's talking about his children and how racism, he's worried about his children becoming racist. He's not worried about white people racist against his children. He's worried about his children becoming racist. And how racism distorts the personality and warps the character. Okay, closing. I think underneath all of this quest for status, I don't believe that you can reduce human behavior to any one thing, to status. You know, Sigmund Freud said it's all sexuality. Carl Jung said it's all religious. Adler said it's all power hungry, and trying to all reduce human nature to one category. And I don't think you can do that, I think, because we're so complex. But I think bottom line, what I was saying earlier, I think that I believe what we're really wanting is to feel that sense of self-worth and dignity, our first principle. And I believe that a lot of unhappiness and a lot of our relationships don't make it simply because of the lack of self-respect. You know, when I've struggled with that in my life, do I really feel that I'm a person of worth and dignity? And I say that and I have to say to myself, I can't base that on what comes from out here. People telling me how great I am. People calling me reverend. People calling me pastor. I can't go there. I've got to find my sense of self-worth deep within my own self. You know, Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, we don't live at the center. We live from it. So how do you, the challenge of being a human in this world, in this day, in this time, to feel that your life is of worth and dignity, in spite of what the world out there says, you know? You know, it's a real sad thing what happened in the Senate the other day. Or Congress, where it happened. Parents holding up signs saying to these TikTok and Facebook, you're killing our children. Our children are committing suicide. Because of what? Because of this constant pressure from out there. You need to look like this, you need to act like this, you need to drive this kind of car, live in this kind of house, have this, before you can feel that you're worthy enough to live. So I say to you, ignore all that stuff out there. Don't pay attention to it. It's not the house you live in. It's not the kind of car you drive. Not the clothes you wear. It's what's deep within you. You can call it the God spark. You can call it the Christ. You can call it the Buddha. It doesn't matter what you name it. Carl Jung called it the self. The higher self with a capital S. Find that center. It's a struggle to get to that center, that place, and feel that your life means something, that your life is significant, and that you're a person of worth and dignity no matter what the world out there says to you.
Amen.
Who said that? I ain't saying amen, saying to a preacher's like saying sick 'em to a dog. Well, I've got a whole nother sermon than I can. Okay, how was I going to bring this to a close? Okay. Each one of you is a person of tremendous worth and dignity. Amen.
Amen.
Now we're going to sing again. This song by John Denver, It's About Time.
There's a full moon over India, and Gandhi lives again. Who's to say you have to lose for someone else to win? In the eyes of all the people, the look is just the same. First is just the last one. When you play a deadly game, it's about time you realize it. We're all in this together. It's about time we find out it's all of us or none. It's about time to recognize it. Changes in the weather. It's about time. It's about changes. It's about time. There's a light in the Vatican window for all the world to see. Person in the wilderness, sometimes he speaks for me. I suppose I love him most of all when he used to kiss the land with his lips upon our mother's breast. Makes his strongest stand. It's about time we start to see it. Earth is our only home. It's about time we start to face it. Can't make it here all alone. It's about time we start to listen to the voices in the wind. It's about time, it's about changes, it's about time. There's a man who is my brother, I just don't know his name. But I know it's home and family, 'cause I know we feel the same. And it hurts me when he's hungry and when his children cry. I too am a father, that little one is mine. It's about time we begin it, turn the world around. It's about time we start to make it, the dream we've always known. It's about time we start to live it, family of man. It's about time, it's about changes, it's about time. It's about peace, it's about plenty, it's about time. It's about you and me together, it's about time.
If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace.